Okay, you're very welcome back to the Rossie GA podcast. I'm joined this week by former Roscommon footballer Seán McDermott. Seán, you're very welcome. I'd like to be chatting about a Roscommon win this week. Unfortunately, it's a loss. It's a 10-point loss in the Division 2 final to Monaghan. I suppose, look, close for maybe 55 minutes, but the story of the game is nearly reflected in the last 15 minutes where Monaghan outscored Roscommon 1-6 to a point. Unfortunately, from a Roscommon perspective, it got away from us. So what's just your own first thoughts on the game that happened in Croke Park on Saturday?
Darragh, how are you? So, yeah, look, I suppose watching the game, I was actually impressed with the game. I thought it was a great game of football for about 50 minutes, you know. It was tit for tat. I thought the first half was excellent. Look at the changing point of the game really was the goal, you know. Monaghan got the goal and they followed it up then, I think, with a 2-pointer after that. I think we dropped the ball short. I'm not sure, was it Conor Han came on, he made a great run through the middle and the ball dropped short and they punished us off that. I'm actually not sure, was that the goal that came off that or was it the goal? Yeah. So that was kind of where the game changed. You know, we turned the ball over then a couple of times also after they got the goal, where we just needed a small bit of composure just to get the next score, and that didn't happen, and they came up then and punished us. And look, it kind of just ran away, as we said, in the last 10 minutes. But listen, as a Roscommon supporter and watching it, look, I wouldn't be overly concerned. You know, like, I was very impressed again for 50 minutes. Maybe that has been a thing in the league with us. We've been good for maybe 45, 50 minutes and maybe haven't been as good down the stretch, you know, and maybe that's something that Davy Burke and the lads will look at coming into the championship. So, yeah, look, it's I wouldn't say I'm overly concerned with the loss. It would have been lovely to win it, obviously, and get silverware because, look, they obviously went out to win the game. They put out their best team that was available. But again, you could also see in the game that any lad that picked up any kind of a knock was taken off. You could see that. I was kind of surprised that Rory Fallon came off. I thought Rory Fallon was playing very well. I would see Rory Fallon as very much a key cog in the Roscommon team. I like him at 6. I hope he starts at 6 come championship because I think that's where he needs to be. And him going off was definitely a loss, and as was Keith Doyle. I thought Keith Doyle was playing very well too, but obviously it was a legs issue and they wanted to get more lads on and freshen it up. So look, again, not overly concerned. It would have been great to win it, but it's all about the championship now.
Yeah, because that was the key thing talked about before the game, that Roscommon had, you know, this trip to London this weekend. Never ideal, you know. I suppose it's the new game, it's the split season, that championship comes around so quick, and, you know, only a week is never ideal. Just between, you know, even from league and championship, and you would have played that, maybe not that tight of a turnaround. You would have maybe had sometimes, you know, maybe 6 or 7 weeks before a championship game. Just the level of intensity, you know, is it as easy as to switch it on, basically, from, you know, a league final to potentially, I suppose, London, and hopefully, for Roscommon's sake, Galway in 2 or 3 weeks' time? Is it easy to up it that quickly?
I wouldn't say it's easy to up it that quickly. I think that Roscommon will just go away from that game the weekend. They'll look at the areas where they can improve, and they'll just bring that into the London game. And probably, look at, fortunately enough for us, it's London, the first game. If it was anyone else anywhere at home, we probably would have had 2 to 3 weeks, you know. So I suppose like Galway going to New York, you know. So luckily enough, it's London. But yeah, like, I mean, like, obviously the question was, you know, are they able to pick it up? Yeah, look, they'll just look at where their failings were in that game, and they'll bring that forward into the London game. But look at, you know, Roscommon's eyes are solely on Galway. That's the game that they're thinking about. There's no doubt about that. They'll go to London the weekend. They'll get the job done. We're all hoping it'll be a good performance. Sometimes you go to these places and it's not actually the performance everyone thought it might be. Yeah. You'll get over the line. You'll get it done. You'll get home, and they'll be knuckling down for Galway. That is, I can guarantee that's where David Burke's mind is. 100% Galway, and that's what they're looking towards.
Yeah, do you think there's actually more of an emphasis on the Connacht Championship this year? Maybe with the new format and that, maybe less emphasis is being put on the provincial championships to an extent. I think, Roscommon and Galway may want to win it, but maybe year 3 for Davy Burke, that, you know, I suppose they'll be eyeing it up because look, like for Roscommon, you have Division 2, you have Connacht Championship, and look, no one from Roscommon's won the All Ireland since 1944. So realistically, it's Connacht or nothing. As much as we'd like to think, we might be lifting Sam in July.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Listen, the Connacht Championship is there to be won, and the bragging rights are in Connacht to win it. It's as simple as that. I actually think, Roscommon are actually in quite a good place going into the Connacht Championship in relation to, there'll be an awful lot of talk about Galway because they've had a really good league campaign. Okay, they might have faltered in the last couple of games, but Galway will be mad favourites going together. I'm not looking past London. I think Roscommon will go to London and get the job done. They'll come home and it'll be all eyes on Galway. And I think, we're actually in a good place for the Galway game because I'd say a lot of people aren't expecting Roscommon to beat Galway, even though in-house, and me being an ex-player, knowing in-house and what happens, Roscommon will have their eyes firmly fixed on a big win in Salthill, 100%. And that's what they'll be eyeing towards. And the Connacht title, listen, Connacht titles, they're not easy won. And if we're going to win one this year, you're going to have to beat Galway and Mayo. And I think Roscommon, 100%, that'll be the springboard. And that's where they'll want to go. And yeah, look at in relation to silverware, that's the first thing that's on offer. So go and win it. You win the Connacht Championship, then you're hitting into an All-Ireland quarter-final, and you're on, you're obviously in a really, really good place. And I think for Roscommon, and it has been for quite some time, even in my own time playing, could never really break the duck of a quarter-final, and that's what everyone is looking for Roscommon to do, break that duck of a quarter-final. But their eyes will be on Connacht first, 100%.
Because you would have been a part of, good league campaigns and maybe other league campaigns, in 2017 where, it was Division 1 albeit, but, you lose your first 6, you beat Cavan on the last day. Right. But, you win a Connacht title, you get to a quarter-final. Obviously, look, whatever happened in the replay happened, but it's seen as a great year, whereas I say the year before in 16, good league, poor championship, and it's seen as a bad year. So you want to be peaking for championship,
Absolutely. It's amazing you say that, because that's exactly, people don't, really as such remember the league campaign. Like our league campaign in 16 was outstanding. We had a really good league campaign. It was the older system where you had a semi-finals and a final. And it might have been better that year if there wasn't semi-finals, that the league was over for us, because the loss against Kerry probably set us back for the year, But then in 17, obviously, our emphasis in 17 was, we got relegated, but we probably didn't train hard throughout the league in 17, but we really upped it for the 8 weeks before the championship. We put in a serious shift of work them 8 weeks before we went out in the Connacht Championship. And the eyes were on the Connacht Championship that year. There was no doubt about it. Yeah.
So looking ahead to London, looking back at some of the performances, like we put up 19 points, and again I mentioned it, probably the last 15 minutes, we missed a fair bit, couple of goal chances. Maybe Donny put one over, Ben O'Carroll had one. Dermot probably be disappointed with maybe the couple of frees he missed as well.
Yeah, Rory Fallon in the first half.
Yeah. So we put up 19, but realistically, we probably could have got to Monaghan's maybe 126 or closer to. We should have been closer to with the chances we had.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely created them. And I think David Burke actually made a good point when he was interviewed after the game. He was kind of saying how I think Monaghan had 6 2-pointers. Is that right? And we had, what are we, 1? Is that all we had? Yeah. So, but again, Roscommon were going down the throat of Monaghan. They were looking for goals. I thought quite a bit, you know what I mean. And then when they weren't on, they just tip it over the bar for a 1-pointer. So I think they'll just look at their execution and being that final pass to play, that final pass in relation to creating a couple of more chances. And we could have been right there. I think you can read too much into Sunday. I think looking in myself, I'd be hoping that Davy Burke and the lads, and I'm sure they do know what their best team is, because he's used quite a lot of players in the league, which is a good thing. And also you can say, you can also say to yourself, does he know his best team? I'm sure he does in the back of his mind. He knows what team he wants to have out. And I suppose injuries throughout the league would have forced his hand with different players coming in and not coming in. I'd like to see Stacky at 3 come to the championship. I'd like to see Rory Fallon at 6. I'm very happy with our midfield pairing. I think the boys are playing very well there. Eddie Nolan and Keith Doyle. And I'd love to see Kieran Murth at 11. That's who I'd really like to see at 11 for Roscommon. I think Kieran is elusive, he's a playmaker, and he's a scorer. And I think he has more freedom when he plays at 11. Sometimes, in the new system, obviously you have to keep 3 up front, right? So he's lined out Kieran inside along with GM with quite a lot with McKeown or whoever else it might be. And maybe so to keep him in that triangle of 3 up front. But often what happens if you're named in the corner, you're going to be faced with a very sticky or hard marking cornerback who will follow you no matter where you are. Where sometimes if you play at 11, if Kieran is lined out at 11, he's picked up by a 6, you'll find that both them players will have a big influence on the game because they're out in the middle third and they're getting on ball a bit easier than they would if they were being man-marked by a cornerback, if that makes sense. So I would really like to see Kieran at 11 for us. You know, that's kind of the spine I'd like to see. And then after that, the team will pick itself depending on form and who's going well at training and who's not injured and all that kind of stuff. But that's the line I'd like to see up the middle. And this might be a big show, but I'd love to see Inda at 14, personally. I think it'll throw something totally different at it. I think you could give him a license to say, go out, come in, do what you want to do. But a big man at 14, I think, is something that we should look at.
Yeah, I think they were trying a bit more, especially in the first half. Anyways, he was being left up more with the 3 up front, and I think even Began got a flick to, maybe I think it was a drop short shot or something. First half, and it's probably just at the moment for Davy Burke, it's probably getting Enda, Jermid, Kieran all playing well together. We actually probably haven't seen all 3 of them play well together. We've seen, probably Jermid had a good game at the weekend. In fairness, that was our main scorer. But say Kieran and Enda probably just weren't maybe up to that level. It's trying to maybe, come up with a system of play that we can, expose our talent up front.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. And look, I think that again, I think that all comes down to positions. And I just think if we had Kieran at 11, I think it sets everyone else up because Kieran is such a playmaker, along with a scorer. We know he's a great scorer threat, but he's a heads-up footballer who can see a pass and can split a defence. And I just really, really like to see him at 11 because he's not what you call a ball carrier as such. He's more a playmaker,
Is it a concern for a defence? Because of 7 2-pointers in the last games. Now we're all getting used to it and probably how to defend it. Do you push out? You're looking back base and that. I mean, we conceded 11. I think from just recollection, we've only scored 1 in the last 2 games ourselves. That's a massive difference in, as opposed from our forward play. You can look at both ways, forward play and defensive play.
Yeah. I think if you look back at the game the last day, I think we had opportunities to get more 2-pointers. I just think we didn't take them on. I think that lads were kind of more going down the barrel trying to get goals than taking on the 2-pointers. I think the look of that at training, I think it's something that's very easy to rectify. I think lads just need to get their eye in again and get their confidence hitting the 2s and maybe forget about the 3s at time. Because look at a lot of the time, goals. You'd be thinking in the game and the way it is that goals are easy to come by, but you nearly have as much out of a 2-pointer now, obviously, as you do out of a goal chance. So I think it's something that Roscommon will look at, and I think the players we have, I think they'll get back on board, and we'll see more 2-pointers come to the championship.
Can we see Megan, I suppose, again, back freeze with the 2, and it almost felt like they went 5 up at that stage, and almost felt like Roscommon nearly had to try and start chasing 2-pointers. That's the flip side of it. When you are behind maybe by 5 or 6 in the second half, do you chase the 2-pointers or do you keep chipping away? It's kind of, everyone's just still getting used to it.
Yeah, that's very true too. But I suppose again, I think the key thing there is that if you concede or you're under the cost and you're after conceding, like Roscommon conceded the goal and then they conceded, I think they went when Monaghan got the goal, did that put them 3 clear or 5 clear? Yeah, Roscommon just needed to get the next score, regardless of a 1, a 2, or a 3. They need to get their hands on the ball, take the sting out of the game and create a scoring chance. That's all they had to do. And I think we just followed that on with turnover after turnover, nearly trying too hard instead of saying, you know what, Monaghan have their tails up here. Let's get hold of the ball. Let's swing it. Let's get into our half of the field. Let's swing it from left to right. Let's get the 11v11. Let's swing it from left to right till we get our opportunity and just get a score and set it all back down.
Yeah, and by some, I suppose since the amendments after round 5. I suppose Conor Carroll stayed in goal. He's not come out. Began and Morgan and a few of those are still coming out now and again. I mean, has that affected Roscommon? Maybe just that getting used to it, because even before the rules, Carroll was always up and he was nearly just the extra man the whole time.
Yeah, he was, but I just don't know. For me watching it, I just don't know. Was it really offering us a lot, to be honest? Conor is a serious talent, brilliant goalkeeper. He's very comfortable on the ball. Like the likes of Morgan is a different type of player. Morgan is the type of player who's going to come up the field. He's like an outfield player. He's going to ping points all day. Conor is not that kind of player for us, albeit he was offering us that 12v11. Obviously, maybe getting someone else free. Maybe it has an impact, but I don't know. I think we can read too much into that also. I think we just need to get our eye back in for 2-pointers instead of being more direct looking for goals. That's what I felt watching the Monaghan game.
Yeah. Over the 7 games, had the best defence. Now, I know we won't be happy at 126, although, again, you have to put the caveat on that the new rules are we're just naturally enough going to concede more. Is it as simple as Brian Stack comes in and just shores it up? I mean, poor Brian Stack, it's almost like his name's been mentioned nearly every week and him coming back, and it was like he's going to be the saviour for Roscommon at the back. Is it as simple? I mean, he's a miss, but surely Brian Stack can't do it all.
No, look, it's not as simple as that, but the reality is that Brian Stack has been an All-Star nominated fullback for 2 years now in a row, okay? So we need Brian Stack a fullback. It's as simple as that. Like, Brian Stack can play any place. We all know that. Can play half backline, full backline, could play midfield, half forward. He wouldn't be able to play us any place. But for Roscommon at this present time, we need him at 3. And I think he gives you that stability. And I think whether he's flanked by David Murray and Niall Higgins or Pierce Frost or young Neary lad, I think them players would naturally feel more comfortable with Stacky at 3 with them. I would have loved to have seen, the likes of David Neary and Pierce Frost playing the whole league with Brian Stack beside them. I think they would have had even better performances. It was quite a lot, to ask the likes of Pierce Frost to step in his debut season with Roscommon and play full back. It was a big ask, And I suppose you can also maybe look at that and say, well, is there such thing as a full back in football now? It's only 3 back. Is it 2 back? Sometimes they only play 2 inside. But the reality is when Brian is in there, he just gives you that bit of stability, that bit of know-how. He plays the game on the front foot. He brings the ball out very comfortably. He sets our attack off. And he's also a very, very good man marker. So I think it can't be overlooked, but he's a massive, massive cog in Roscommon's defence.
Yeah, there is a positive in the that as he has, hoping that he'd be able to keep the fitness. He training away is probably more of a contact. Is it a big ask for him to go in to Salt Hill? Fingers crossed he'd be ready by then. Again, we don't know. I presume against London, but I suppose a big ask to go in Galway, probably not having a game under your belt for 2 months.
Yeah, it is. It's a big ask, but I'm sure he'll be sharp. Again, obviously, if it's a ribs issue, it will be a thing at train that he won't be doing much contact, but he will be sharp. He'll be doing a lot of ball work, all that kind of stuff, and it'll be a big ask. But look, no better man than Brian. Brian won't be fazed by it anyway.
So, and London Saturday, I'm sure it'll be hopefully a big Roscommon continuing going over the weekend and enjoying themselves. Hopefully with the Roscommon win as well. And it probably is the ideal game, as we mentioned earlier. If you were going into Galway this weekend in Salt Hill on the back of that loss, at least with London, fingers crossed, it's plain sailing. You get a win under your belt, and at least you have 2 clear weeks then to Salt Hill and Galway. Yeah,
absolutely. Roscommon will be going over, get the job done the weekend, get back home, and they'll be getting their ducks in a row ready for Galway. Look, it's exciting. I'm really looking forward to the championship. I think Roscommon have a really, really good panel. I think there's a really good panel of players there. But yes, we still need our mainstay players in their mainstay positions for us to be a force. And I think it's the same with any team. If you go to look at Kerry, look at Dublin, look at any of them, it's the same thing. They all have really, really good, strong panels, but yet they'll still have their main players in their main positions, and that is the key. That is the key. Yeah.
So who are we looking at going into the championship? We had one championship. I suppose who's Roscommon's most important player? I know if that's not easy. We were mentioning Brian Stack, we mentioned Kieran at 11, and you have Jeremy is probably our chief scorer. Like, who's the man that I suppose Roscommon will be looking to maybe hope.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, that's, listen, there's a handful of players there that are very important to Roscommon. They're all very important to Roscommon. Like, every player that's on that panel, the way the game is, the 26-man panel that's picked, every one of them will be, from the players that I've seen in the league, they all have something to offer. And with the way the champion is going to come in thick and fast, we'll need 24, 26 fit players to get us over the line in any game. We're obviously, blessed in a way with the amount of forwards we have at our disposal. So that's going to be important. I think Keith Doyle has been extremely influential for Roscommon this year, and I think Keith has been excellent. And again, that probably comes off the back of Davy Burke having the luxury that he's been injury free and playing him in every game. You can see Keith Doyle is growing in stature for Roscommon because he's playing games. And look at it was the same myself when I started playing. It's very hard to expect any young lad to come into a senior panel on their first year or second year, be given a jersey and expect them to grow into it. You're not going to grow into it unless you're given a fair crack and game after game after game. That's where lads get their confidence and drive on from. And you can see it clearly in Keith, that he's improving massively. I thought he had a fine game in Croke Park on Saturday evening. It was a pity he went off. You could see that it kind of dwindled for us when he went off, because he's such a presence, So I think he's been one of our best players in the league so far, and I think we need to keep Keith fit. Yeah,
and along with Keith, Darragh, Craig, Carroll were on with them. That if not both, at least one of them has a big summer, because they're two players that you just feel that there's so much potential there that one of them could just explode and have an unbelievable championship, because we've seen it in glimpses from the pair of them. Yeah,
absolutely. Look, the two of them are extremely talented players. Extremely talented. They've showed it before in other games. We know what they're all about. I'm not sure what Darragh's issue. I'm sure Darragh must be carrying a bit of a knock that we haven't seen him the last while. There was a lot of talk about him playing in the Sigerson final, that he had a bit of an issue with the knee or something. Touch wood that it'll be right for championship, because we need Darragh. And the same with Ben. Obviously, Ben had his issues with his hips or whatever was going on there, and it was great to see him back. And again, he showed great glimpses the weekend of what he can do. And look, here's hoping that they hit the ground running in the championship, get back from Ruislip with a full bill of health, and that we have 2 weeks to prepare for Galway. That's what everyone's hoping.
Yeah, usually I predictions. You've saw the Connacht semi-final. Do you think it'll be plain sailing? Because as you mentioned there, sometimes these sort of games, they're not the 20-point wins that some people think they might only turn into a 6 or a 7-point win.
Yeah, look at it. It's very hard to call. Listen, it'll all depend on the mind frame that the lads are in going over to Ruislip. I'm sure they'll be in the perfect mind frame. They'll go over and get the job done. Listen, whether we win in Ruislip by 4 or 5 points, or whether we win in Ruislip by 20 points, it doesn't matter. Just go over, get the job done. Don't overthink it. Come back 2 weeks to get ready for Galway. That's really what it's about. Because the reality is you can overthink it. We were obviously very lucky in 2016 when we went to New York. We won it by a point. 5 years previous to that, we bet New York out the gate. And again, we probably looked into it too much in 2016, without a doubt. There was probably too much Meadow. Whereas, flip that on Mayo. Mayo went to Ruislip in 2011. Horn's first year. It was first to Mayo's 5 in a row. They went to Ruislip. John Collins from Melfin misses a free kick to beat Mayo. Mayo beat them in extra time. Mayo come back, win the Connacht title, and that was their first of 5 in a row. So I think you can look too much into it. Just go to Ruislip, get the job done. Whether it's a 1-point win, a 20-point win, we don't care. Get home, get ready for ball.